Well, hello, folks. It's Jeffrey Daugherty. Welcome to the Jeffrey Daugherty Show. I am recording this on Monday the 22nd because the first time I recorded it just didn't work. So usually we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but this week we'll do Tuesday and Wednesday and Friday. So here we are on the Jeffrey Daugherty Show. I am the Christian Whistleblower. You can find me, reach me at christianwhistleblower.com, Jeff at christianwhistleblower.com, Gotham like in Batman Ltd at gmail.com, and also nckabala at gmail.com. On Twitter, I'm at nckabala. On Facebook, Jeff A. Daugherty and Jeffrey Daugherty Show. And what am I forgetting about? That may be it. We got a YouTube channel. Check it out. We've got lots and lots of people listening/watching. We're going to get things up there, more of the watching variety here as the new year rolls around. We need to get Cliff back into this. I got to figure out how to do this. I've just had some issues, so I know you got an issue, have a tissue, but here we go anyway. So it's almost Christmas, and I normally do something about how Christmas is, a holiday that was celebrated 3,000 years before Jesus, and I usually go down that road. But you know what? I think this year I finally moved back past the need to do that because, it doesn't really matter, what you think about Christianity. You can still be spiritual and have a Christmas tree and all that stuff. So I've kind of moved beyond that, but I do have to chuckle when I see the whole keep Christ in Christmas thing, because it's just so I understand what people are thinking about, but you can't. How do you keep Christ in Christmas when they were doing it for 3,000 years before he was ever born? It's just it's an anthropological, historical, spiritual fact. But anyway, that's all I'm going to talk about. So I'll talk about something non-controversial. I'll talk about something just nice today. We'll talk about and ask the question, is Christianity a cult? How's that? Simple, easy, non-confrontational, right? And you ask, Jeff, how in the world could you come up with such a thing? Well, for 20 years, I was a Pentecostal evangelist. Assemblies of God, Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee, Church of God in Christ, Evangelical Free Baptist Church, Association of Seventh-day Pentecostal Assemblies. Those are the organizations that I was licensed with. 3 of those are the largest Pentecostal denominations in the world, some of the largest Protestant denominations in the world. So I didn't just fall off the cabbage truck, a day or two ago. I've been around this thing a while. This isn't my first rodeo. And part of what I used to do when I was an evangelist is I would do a series on the cults. And I would go into a city and I would spend a night preaching, teaching about the Jehovah's Witnesses. I would spend a night preaching, teaching about the Mormons. Depending upon what part of the country I was in, if the Seventh-day Adventists were big there, I'd do a seminar on the Seventh-day Adventist. If the Worldwide Church of God was big there, I'd do a seminar on the Worldwide Church of God. And I even did stuff, on the Masons, which, of course, every Pentecostal preacher has something to say about. So I did a lot of study about comparative religions, did a lot of study about other faiths and other beliefs. And, you've got these people called apologists that are out there to define who's a cult and what's a cult. And really, most apologists need to apologize to humanity because they're not doing anything except muddying the waters. And, well, we'll get into that a little bit later. But at any rate, those that are of the Walter Martin Kingdom of the Cults, that's a classic book that pretty much lists everybody that's supposed to be a cult. And I'm not saying occult. So occult is something totally different. Occult is something secret, something hidden, something that usually requires an initiation into. An occult, something occult is secret, hidden, privileged knowledge. Oh, I would never have anything to do with the occult. Well, If you never have anything to do with the occult, that means you have no secret privileged knowledge. So give me your passwords. So we all have some occult in our life. But we're not talking about the occult. We're talking about cults, just C-U-L-T, cults. And the Christian church has basically 3 defining characteristics of cults. Number 1, every cult will have what is called an extra biblical source of revelation. Let's talk about the Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, they have their New World Translation of the Bible, and it really is it's really a translation of the Bible, but when you're in traditional Christianity, you will say that that is an extra biblical source of inspiration. You'll talk about the Watchtower Bible and Tract Committee, which is in Brooklyn. And yes, while it is true, if you study deep and hard into the theology of the Jehovah's Witnesses, when a mandate comes from the Watchtower Committee, it basically does have the same weight as Scripture, but it's a bit of a stretch to say that the Jehovah's Witnesses have a extra biblical source of inspiration, because their source really is a version of the Bible. So, at any rate, but you would talk about the Mormons. They have the Book of Mormon. They have Doctrines and Covenants. They have Pearl of Great Price. So they definitely do have some extra biblical sources of revelation. There's no doubt about it. And you look at the Seventh-day Adventists we mentioned. They have the writings of Ellen G. White. The Worldwide Church of God has the writings of Herbert W. Armstrong. So these this is the number 1 characteristic Christians would say of a cult that has an extra biblical source of revelation. Now, to me, extra biblical, and if I say that to most people, they're going to think, saying stuff and teaching stuff that Jesus didn't say or didn't teach. And that would be very correct, I would say. And I would have to say to you that if the standard is not to have an extra biblical source of inspiration, then Christianity itself is a cult based upon the extra biblical inspiration source they have in the so-called Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul taught stuff Jesus didn't teach. The Apostle Paul taught against stuff Jesus did teach. And the Apostle Paul made up stuff on his own that Jesus had never heard of and certainly had never preached. And let me just throw something out there for you. This is something that churches never talk about. For some reason, this is something that Christian women never talk about. Jesus, his real name is Yahushua, or Yeshua for short, Jesus placed a great deal of honor upon women. Jesus honored women. Jesus taught the apostles that it was perfectly right and honorable for a woman to lead a congregation, for women to preach, for women to teach, for women to prophesy, for women to be elders of churches. 2 John, I believe, and 3 John are addressed to a lady pastor. So, Jesus gave great honor to Mary Magdalene. Augustine called Mary Magdalene the apostle to the apostles. So Jesus held women in very high regard. And Paul said women should shut the hell up and not talk in church. That's in the Bible. Paul said that a woman should be silent in church. Where are all my ladies at? Why are you not up in arms demanding some kind of something? How can you stand by and just let that happen? I don't get it. Paul also said, I don't allow a woman to have authority over a man. Well, what would Paul do if Hillary Clinton gets elected president next time around? What would he have done with Maggie Thatcher, the Iron Lady over in Britain? What would he do with these? I've met and seen and heard many gifted lady ministers, lady teachers, lady preachers, lady spiritual leaders. But Paul said, y'all should be in church and just hush. And he said, if you do have a question, ask your husband at home. How misogynistic can you get? How degrading can you get? That right there is undeniable proof, undeniable evidence that Paul was an extra biblical source of inspiration. And even the Jesus that, and I'm running out of time, that Christianity talks about was a Jesus that was common to 20 or 30 other religions. Listen to the show a few days ago about the most shocking Bible verse you've never heard. And then the second, and I'm trying to hurry along here, the second characteristic of a cult is that it is centered around the personality of one individual. The Jehovah's Witnesses, you could say C.T. Russell, or maybe Judge Rutherford. The Mormons, obviously, Joseph Smith, maybe Brigham Young. The Seventh-day Adventists, Ellen G. White. The Christian Scientists, Mary Baker Eddy. The Worldwide Church of God, again, Herbert W. Armstrong. And the Christian church is based upon the teachings of the Apostle Paul. I wrote a book called Apostle Paul Antichrist. Was interviewed on Coast to Coast AM with George Norris. 410 pages. Get a hold of me. I'll get it in your hands. Paul was and is the personality that drives Christianity, and it's really Paulianity because it's a message that Jesus never taught. Paul co-opted the message of the original Jesus movement and has used it to create a guilt-based, fear-empowered control matrix that billions still live under today. But not me. I'm free. It's the truth. I got my way out of that mess. So Christianity, in my view, has an extra biblical source of inspiration. Christianity, in my view, is centered on the personality of a person. And number three, a cult will claim exclusivity. For example, if you're not a Jehovah's Witness, you're not going to survive Armageddon. You're not going to make it into the perfect kingdom, and you're certainly not going to be one of the 144,000 with a heavenly hope. That's called exclusivity. If you are not a member of the Church of God, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, if you are not up to date with your tithes, if you are not in the temple performing the temple rites and rituals, you cannot ascend to the celestial kingdom. That's exclusivity. If you are not a Seventh-day Adventist, and if you have not accepted Ellen G. White as the spirit of prophecy, why then you're not going to be able to pass the investigative judgment and make it through to wherever it is they say you make it through to. That's exclusivity. Well, what does Christianity have? Paulianity. It has, if you are not one of us, if you smoke, drink, or chew, or hang out with those that do, if you are not one of us, if you don't do what we say, how we say, when we say, where we say, and who we say, then you will burn forever in a lake of fire. Even if you've never heard about our message. Are you serious? Have you ever burned your finger? So you believe that a loving God is going to take people that He created and throw them into a lake of fire to burn forever because they never heard of Him or decided that what Paulianity teaches them wasn't for them. I mean, even Adolf Hitler, one of the most evil men that ever lived, he was 70-some years old, I guess, when he died. For 70 years of sin, even if he was the meanest, dirtiest, rottenest, you-know-what, for 70 years, does that qualify him for a lifetime of torture at the hands of a loving God? And what about all those people that are sinners that died? Oh, well, they're in hell already, Jeff, don't you know? Oh, so let me get this straight. They haven't been judged, they haven't been convicted, and already they're being punished, burning forever in a lake of fire at the hands of a loving God. Folks, that's exclusivity with a capital E. and a capital X. Christianity itself meets the three characteristics that it continuously states are characteristics of cults. Something to think about. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower, and I will talk to you again on Christmas Eve. Don't know what we're going to talk about, but we will see you again. And until then, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, and all that stuff. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower, wishing you peace and light.